Hare, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj's daily online class, and thank you all for joining. Today's class will be given by a Grace Sri Devi Mataji, and it will be on Canto 6, Chapter 2. So Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Let me just share the verse. Give me 1 minute, Mataji.
Sure. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Dinanath Gauranga Prabhu. What a beautiful name you have now. Hare Krishna. My humble obeisances to all the devotees. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to our wonderful Guru Parampara. I am honored to give class today. Today is a very special day, actually, because one of our God sisters, glorious mothers passing away, inspired me to choose these verses. The reason I chose these verses because the passing of a devotee is very different from the passing of an ordinary soul. The devotees are hearing the holy name of the Lord, which is the most auspicious thing to hear at the time of death. So I wanted to share with you all that Mother Sukavaha, the mother of Sukavaha, a god sister, gave up her body with her gaze fixed on the holy, divine, transcendental form of Lord Jagannath. And hearing Srila Prabhupada chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this passing of a devotee, passing of a person who is hearing the holy name is so auspicious because that soul goes back to Krishna. And we welcome His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So we would continue. Can you see the screen?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
No, we will ask Guru Maharaj because Guru Maharaj's sequence is different. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, let me bring up the verses that we were discussing. Just give me 1 moment, Maharaj.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, your screen is very blurry. I don't know why. Previously it was okay. Now it is very blurry. We can't see the screen properly.
Is this better?
No, the same, Prabhuji.
Okay. To be honest, I don't know what's going on as well. Let me try again. Is this better?
Haribo.
No, Prabhuji. I'll share screen. You stop.
What language is
Hare
that?
Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Mr. Garanga.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
So So we'll be continuing with Canto 12, Chapter 3, the Bhumi Gita, verse 37.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pitir Bhartir Sujir Jatin Hitvasarathasaradaham Nandadridshala Samvada Dinastrainya. Hello, Naraha. Translation. In Kali Yuga, man will be wretched and controlled by women. They will reject their fathers, brothers, others, relatives, and friends, and will instead associate with their sisters and brothers of their wives. Thus, their conception of friendship will be based exclusively on sexual ties. This is happening already. Next. Sudrapatigrahishyanti tapodesu jivinyaha dharma vyakshadya dharmagya adiruyatamasanam. Translation. Uncultured men will accept charity on behalf of the Lord and will earn their livelihood by making a show of austerity and wearing a mendicant dress. Those who know nothing about religion will mount a high seat and presume to speak on religious principles. Purport. The epidemic, bogus gurus, swamis, priests, and so forth are explicitly described here. So we don't need to go into that, that's obvious. Nityam udvignya manasaho durviksa karakar sitaha nirane bhutale rajan anvristi bharaturaha vasana panasayanam yavayasya snana bhusanai inapisacha darsa bhavishyanti kalopajaha. Translation. In the age of Kali, people's minds will always be agitated and they will become emaciated by famine and taxation, my dear king, and will always be disturbed by fear or drought. They will lack adequate clothing, food, and drink, and will be unable to rest properly, have sex or bathe themselves, and will have no ornaments to decorate their bodies. In fact, the people of Kali Yuga will gradually come to appear like ghostly haunted creatures. Symptoms described here are already prevalent in many countries of the world, will gradually spread to other places engulfed by impiety and materialism. 41. Kalo kakinike pyarte vigrihat twagda sauridaha vakshyanti cha priyan pranan anishyanti sukhan api. In Kali Yuga, men will develop hatred for each other even over a few coins, giving up all friendly relations. They will already lose their own lives and kill even their own relatives. Text 42. Narakshyanti madnuja saravo pitravyapi putram bharyam chakulajyam sudram sinodaram baraha. Men will no longer protect their elderly parents, their children, or their respective wives. Thoroughly degraded, they will care only to satisfy their own bellies and genitals. Purport. In this age, many people are already sending their elderly parents away to lonely and often bizarre old age homes, although the elderly parents spent their entire lives serving their children. Young children are also tormented in many ways in this age. Suicide among children has increased dramatically in recent years because they are being born not to loving, religious parents, but to degraded, selfish men and women. In fact, children are often born because of birth control pill, a prophylactic, or some other contraceptive device malfunctioned. Under such conditions, it's very difficult nowadays for parents to morally guide their children. Generally ignorant of spiritual science, parents cannot lead their children on the path of liberation, thus fail to fulfill their primary responsibility in life. As predicted in this verse, adultery has become common. People in general are extremely concerned with eating and sex, which they consider far more important than knowing the absolute truth. Om Gyan Timiranda Sya Gyana Jana Savakaya Chaksun Militam Nyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Astyatya Desatarine Vanchakopa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Prebacha Itaram Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So material life generally is based on selfishness. Even if a person does something for another person, generally the reason why is there is some benefit for the person who does it. Although they may be trying to serve another person, but they're motivated by their own selfish interest. Now we see here that people don't even care anymore about how they treat others. They will simply become selfish in a very brash and very outright way. That selfishness is simply based on sense gratification, not on some personal need, which makes the whole thing abominable. So therefore, in this age of Kali, as it continues to spiral downward, we're heading more and more to the lower modes. How low can you go? No limit. How high can you go in spiritual life? No limit. But in material life, you can become so degraded that there is no level by which one can stabilize their degradation. It just continues to spiral downward. So we see that principle of selfishness becomes so prominent that envy, enmity, even amongst friends and family members, so-called friends and family members, will be very much a prominent feature of this age. People, you can see as the age develops, you see it even now, what gets manufactured on the market and what becomes the focus in that manufacturing. It's based on various types of sense gratification. Prabhupada would say, sometimes speaking to learned people in different respectable circles, he would say, where is the education in the society that teaches one the relationship with God? It's not being done. Everyone is being told or taught, you are this body. Of course, they don't say the words directly, but all education and all activities get engaged for progress in this age simply is based on the body. And therefore, there's no level or no limit to sense gratification. In fact, the more sense gratification becomes prominent, the more it becomes degraded. That's why you can't say, well, there'll be a nice, stable society where people have a certain level of sense gratification. No, it'll continue to spiral downward. And that is just the way it is. And you see here, who served other people their whole life will not be appreciated in their old age, will be relegated to a situation where they have to be taken care of by strangers, and at the same time it costs money to do that. The family tradition simply is an opportunity, or the family structure is an opportunity for each person to engage in their own personal selfish interest. I remember when I was preaching in one city in America, we had a preaching center there. It was Cincinnati, Ohio. And I was invited to go to the house of one of my, he wasn't my disciple, I wasn't a guru, but he was a person who was coming to the temple, and I was kind of running the temple. So he invited me to come to his home. He was a simple man, not very wealthy. So I came to his home, very simple place. We opened the door, and immediately we were in the living room when we opened the door, and there was his father watching the television with some sporting event was on the screen, completely absorbed in it. And then as I was escorted through the house, I went to the next room, which wasn't even a room, which was a curtain dividing a big room into two rooms. And then in the other section of that same room was his brother, who was watching a sporting event on another television. So I was thinking, two people watching television, both watching a sporting event, practically the same room, but it's closed off by a big, gigantic blanket, which was like a curtain. So I was thinking, and I was thinking, well, maybe they each want to watch their own. But then I looked and I saw that each was watching the same sporting event. Then I became really quite incredulous, kind of astonished. And I asked the question, why? There were two people back practically in the same room, watching TV, same sporting event, two different televisions. So why couldn't they both sit together and watch the same thing on the same television? So the obvious answer was Well, one of them may decide to change, and that way there will be no disharmony. The disharmony is already there, just in the alignment of people's lives. So people can't get along with each other. They can't agree with each other on anything, even in the family. There's so many fights in the family, so many disagreements. As it mentions in previous verses, children will be born. Here, I mean, children will be born in a very licentious way. The birth control apparatus will fail, and then you have Varna Sankara, and you have these unwanted populations. So these children, somewhat are unruly because they're coming from lower modes of the universe, and they come into these families. When one doesn't follow the Garbhodan Sankara, then they're taking a risk in bringing in a soul that may be of a lower consciousness. That's why these Garbhodan Sanskara, or the actual Sanskaras, are meant to keep the consciousness in line with the consciousness of the parents. If the parents are pious, they will get a person who is also of the same karmic collection. But even if the parents are so-called pious and they don't follow these principles as given in the Vedas for the different stages of life and also the beginning of life, then any soul can come into this particular situation. And you have so many problems. So you see some of these kids, they're really, really like gangsters, even when they're young. They have no respect for any elders. They do anything they want. They just, and they have all kinds of illicit activities, just like mentions in the United Kingdom, the UK. Statistic I heard many years ago that by the age of 11 years old, majority of the population in the UK of that age will already have tried all kinds of sensual gratifications, even abominable kinds. So it's a very, you'll see, it's just because the parents don't follow any religious traditions nor follow any rules in any way. People eat when they want, they sleep when they want, they have sex when they want, they go out and do whatever they want when they want. So there's no regulation in life. Everyone is motivated simply by the mental whims, which are all connected with selfishness. So this is another, some of the more common features in this age. And eating and sex have become the extremely important part. Adultery has become common. I mentioned how, I think in a couple lessons before, I mentioned how there is a website. It's called, what is it called? It's called, I'll get it, don't worry. Extramarital activities.com. In other words, if you're married and you want to have a relationship outside of your marriage, there is a website that can align with you with someone who is also of the same mentality. And both of you are married to different people, but you can have a one-night fling, and then that's your so-called enjoyment. So this is what goes on. So marital vows don't mean anything anymore. And people, even in marriage, don't follow any rules and regulations. So this is the age of Kali. It's just the way it is. And it's growing more and more. Somehow there is some civility left with a smaller section of the population. But even good people who generally don't who generally follow some kind of morality are also led away by the wave of sense gratification that is there in this age. That's this age, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. But as we'll see, as this chapter goes on, the solution is presented in one verse in this chapter as the focus to bring back a human civilization. Because simply to satisfy the senses in any way you want is not even animal, it's lower than animal. Because animals follow a certain routine for their own sense gratification. They are under the laws of material energy, and they more or less follow those laws given to them by God for the particular type of body. But a human being is meant for regulation. So eating, sleeping, mating, and defending is the activities of the material body in the material world, but it's meant to be done according to principles that guide the activity for fulfillment of that need up to a point of satisfaction, and not simply as we say, not for recreation, but for procreation. Eating just to give strength and nourishment to the body. Sleeping in order to maintain the health of the body and to regenerate the body. And defending to a certain amount of degree where one has their own little enclave where they can live. But now all of these things, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, just like if you go to most big industrial so-called progressive countries in the world, you'll find that the tax budget is centered around defense. Most of the money collected by the governments are used for armaments. They call it defense, but it actually isn't defense. It's just aggression or opportunities for aggression. And then they just sap people's income to build all of these missiles, bombs, various, aircraft, and various other fortresses. So just like the country of China, they have more than 1 million men in the military. 1 million, more than that. I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's more than 1 million. So this is Kali Yuga, and it's only going to spiral more. Therefore, unless we seriously practice Krishna consciousness, we will also be victimized by this age, and we will also be swept up into that wave of sense gratification, even involuntarily. But one has to be very serious in their practice of sense gratification, Krishna consciousness, and especially put emphasis on the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Okay, so these are something. Let's see, what is our time now? It is now, okay, we're 5 after the hour. Yeah, okay, elderly parents, we hear at old age homes, simply push them aside. Just like during the COVID epidemic in the early 90s, when the hospitals were getting filled with COVID patients, they were taking COVID patients, people who were infected, and putting them in old age homes with a somewhat of a demarcation boundary within the home. But ultimately, because of the infection, many of the people in the old age home got infected and died. So they get mistreated in the old age homes. And what do there? They just rot their life out by playing useless games like cards or checkers or some other stupid game, shuffleboard. And then they watch television and they sit around talking nonsense. So it's a pretty pitiable society. We're in Vedic culture because the elders have given their lives for the growth of their children. Their children feel very much loving and responsible to do everything they can to give their parents everything. Today I'm in Belgaum, and we just had our Rath Yatra festival. Today is the final day of the festival. And see, we were invited to one home. It was a very nice home, big family, many cousins and brothers, and the elderly people were there. And we saw the father, the grandfather, he was almost 89 years old. The man was being well taken care of by the family, so much so that he even does things, keeps busy to do things in the family. He's happy. I saw how happy he was, and he's being cared for nicely. Of course, the family is a Krishna conscious family, but it shows. And of course, even in Krishna conscious families, you see the older people get rejected and neglected because the children don't want to take the time and bother with taking care of the parents. So if they get some money, they try to put them in some kind of old age facility where they're getting some supposed care. But if the real care is the love you receive from those who you gave that love to throughout your whole life, that is the care that is needed, and not simply some material facility, which is needed also, but secondary. So here we go, Kali Yuga. Manda sumanda mateo manya paga udaha. Pralyena apaye sabda kalo yugin isman mandahan. Manda sumanda mateo manya paga utradaha. Lazy, quarrelsome, unlucky, misguided, always disturbed. The age of Kali is upon us. But Lord Chaitanya has come with the medicine. Eneche asarimaya nasi bara lagi harinam mahamantra lao tumi magi. Chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra as much as you can, not simply you say 16 rounds. Prabhupada gave us 16 rounds as a minimum. We should understand that. It's a minimum. It's not like I've done 16 rounds. That's all I chant today. That's enough. Yeah, well, if you are somewhat engaged fully, you might find only enough time to do 16 rounds. But if you're actually chanting and you're actually developing the quality of a devotee through the chanting, you're automatically, and I use that word, automatically going to want to chant more. Because the chanting is not only a purification process, it's a process of joyfulness. It's nice. It brings happiness, brings satisfaction. It brings complete success on all levels in spiritual practice. The devotee should see the chanting of a holy name is not as a minimum required by some number we accept. No, we should try to chant more and also develop that quality of chanting. As Prabhupada would say, when you're actually chanting, and he uses that word, when you're actually chanting, you'll say 16 rounds. Why not 16,000 rounds? That is one who is actually tasting the chanting, the nectar of the chanting of the holy name. So this is, and this is the force that will insulate, protect one from the raging storm of Kali Yuga, which is destroying all the good qualities of the living entities. Okay, we'll stop there.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, that was a wonderful lecture, and I think highlighted some of the very strong points on the status of the Kali Yuga, especially around the prominence of selfishness within our family, and when there is no education related to spiritual life without regulation, and the only way is to practice seriously Krishna consciousness, emphasizing more on chanting with purity, which is the force that will save us from the blazing storm of the Kali Yuga. So Maharaj, thank you for this wonderful highlights. So dear devotees, I would like to see if you have any questions, clarifications, comments on, we've covered a number of verses, but anything that you want to share, your realization, please do so. You can also post your questions, comments on the chat as well. We can read. Hare Krishna, Shilpesh Prabhu, you raised your hand. You can unmute and ask the question. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The first time I ever met you was at a Bhakti Vriksha program about 4 years ago. And you told us again about the symptoms, the things that are going to happen in Kali Yuga. And you gave an example, I think it was about 4 buckets of water. And when you pour out those buckets of water into another bucket and then pour them back, they will only become half filled, even though there was a full bucket of water. And I think what you were trying to say was that in this age, children, we just don't have it in us to give back what our parents gave us, because we're just more degraded than their generation was. I just wanted to know, what you think about that, because as a son of 2 loving parents who look after us, for all our needs, I can't give back to them. I just don't have it in me to give back to them what they gave to us.
Yeah, that's just the way Kali Yuga is. That statement is part of the Mahabharata, which is part of a larger past. I just told that pastime yesterday here, and was very much appreciated. So yeah, it's just the way it is. Ungratefulness and lack of appreciation is all. Yeah. In other words, the mood of selfishness becomes so strong in Kali Yuga that even amongst such closely related relatives, it's there. So yeah, and that's just the way it is, and it's increasing. No appreciation. In other words, everyone is motivated by their own selfish interest. Even to seniors. Of course, if you grow up in a devotee family, you have a better chance to understand what it means, because when you're a devotee, you think about the welfare of others. When you're a devotee, you try to understand that life is not centered around what you get or what you have, but what you can give. So when that culture manifests through the process of bhakti, then people who do grow up in devotee families, the children, they dedicate their lives to their own growth in spiritual life, but they also take care of others, including their parents. When it's required.
Thank you,
So
Maharaj.
we need training. Training has to be there.
Sridevi Mataji, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Dinanath Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, you spoke on the importance of understanding how there is lack of education in today's environment regarding the nature of a living entity and God. So recently I was in Mumbai and I spent a lot of time with different people, and I could see in some people's homes, they have no altar even. They don't even have any concept of God or any form of worship. And they just coast along, doing routine things and keeping their body fit and going for walks and going to gym and doing that usual thing. And then their children, having no experience of going to temples or having any process of worship, they also grow up like that. And at least the older generation are vegetarians, but the next generation eat all kinds of stuff, non-vegetarian and all kinds of things. And they're even less inclined to spiritual practices. So then it just gets worse. So what is there for the children coming out of such homes? How do they get connected to God if they don't have examples in the home? What hope is there for this population now?
Oh, unless they become fortunate and see that their situation is not the solution to life. They may somehow or other look towards religious life as their problems. As it says in the Bhagavad Gita, 4 types of people come, and one of them is those who are materially distressed. So when people recognize that they're in a material distress situation, those who are a little bit, what we say, progressive in life can understand and not try to hide the distress by creating more situations which bring more distress, but they understand, I'm actually suffering. Maybe there's a way out of suffering. Most people, when they come to that platform, they start looking for another form of material life in order to get out of the suffering. And so people in the material world have a good market for selling various types of ideas to help people stop their suffering, to improve their mental powers, to improve their educational opportunity. In other words, all these self-help books now that are out there, and so much of it, it's just like disgusting. It's based on some psychological aberration, and they take advantage of the people, and they make money on these new ideas. They have all of these things, mind games, and different ways to improve the quality of your sense gratification. So that's also another wave in Kali Yuga. The solution to the problem is another form of the problem, that's all. But if somehow or other one person becomes fortunate, meets a devotee or gets a book, therefore we have to keep this preaching going, especially book distribution. So we can be out there for people who are actually looking for, an alternative in life.
So the only solution for the suffering population is to somehow or the other come in contact with God consciousness, Krishna consciousness.
That's the only solution. Material solutions for material problems, as spoken by Prahlad Maharaj himself. He says that they are more problematic than the problems. And the examples are numerous. You have a material solution, you simply try to, and you have a material problem, you try to come up with a material solution, you create 2 more problems, minimum. try to solve the transportation problem, then you rape the earth of all of its natural resources, you create pollution, you create opportunities for crime. And just solving the transportation problem, people can get from one place to another very fast. They have created so many problems because of that. So many problems. So, you know, some of our devotee community ideas is to do away with all of these amenities. Just like I was on our farm here in Belgaum today. There's no electricity, no running water. They simply depend, they get water from the streams and they collect rainwater. They don't have solar panels yet. They're simply going on candlelight, even for worship in the temple, for the deities. It's a project that has no connection with anything material on the outside, simply depending on nature's gifts in order to live. It's a model community which is still growing and developing. Is certain and need to be established yet, but it's been going on for years, and there are many, many benefits from that. The simple living, the community spirit, the dependence on nature, the dependence on Krishna, the lack of waste. You know, like material society is so wasteful. Plastic bottles pile up. There are mountains of plastic bottles being piled up. Garbage, they can't even find places to get rid of garbage anymore. They dig these big holes into the ground. Trucks, they dump the garbage in these holes, polluting Mother Earth with all the trash. They throw it into the oceans or into the sea. So bad that it's beginning of various types of bacteria and diseases. Dumps, garbage is everywhere. And it's just you just go through this society, you see how dysfunctional it is. They call it energy crisis. There's no energy crisis. It's just the only crisis is the lack of understanding of how to live life. That's the crisis. When sense gratification becomes the means for activity, people become stupid, foolish, and destructive, and on a personal level and on an extended level, people become destructive to themselves and others. The sense gratification is the sickness. The cure is Krishna consciousness. Trying to, just like it says, napanyapi napasyati, the Bhagavatam says, that they see, but they don't see. You see something going on, and you see it's not good, but you do the same thing anyway. See, but I don't see. Napanyapi napasyati. They see everyone is suffering, and they are also suffering, and they continue to engage. The focus is sense gratification. One has to be fixed on Krishna and devotion to Krishna, and then the lifestyle that is conducive to that activity also starts to manifest by the arrangement of Krishna. So that's why Prabhupada just didn't teach, direct spiritual activities. He taught a whole social, and political system of organization for the society, social and economic situation for the society. Because that's also part of spiritual practice. As a society, we have not really fully developed in that area yet, maybe even some places, not even partially. But you can't simply worship God and go on with your materialistic way of life. It just becomes contrary. One will give way to the other, or you get a little bit of each and not the best of both. Just like Arjuna said to Krishna, what happens to a person who engages in spiritual life but doesn't complete it? Do they perish like a riven cloud? And Krishna answers that, Suchinam Samatam Gehe Yoga Brasta Pajayate. They get a chance in their next life. Arjuna's conclusion to his own question was, I haven't made it spiritually and I haven't made it materially. Where am I? Nowhere, either one or the other. But the answer is that if they practice spiritual life, they get a chance in their next life to can pick up where they left off and then complete the process. There's a nice verse that mentions this. If you turn to the first canto, 5th chapter, verse 17, 1:5-17, it's a very often quoted verse by Srila Prabhupada. 1:5-17.
Yes, Guru Maharaj, 1 second.
Taktvansa dharma charanam bhujam harir bhajanda pokatat patetato yadi yatro kavabhadram abura musakim kovarta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. Translation: one who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in immature stage. Yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duties, does not gain anything. So as long as you stay in Krishna consciousness, you'll eventually be successful. Even if you don't make it in this life, you will have the opportunity to continue and ultimately finish in the next life. So but material gain is all destroyed at death. Whatever you live, your home, your relationships, your money, your possessions, everything you have finished at the time of death. Nothing. And the only thing is you get another birth, and most of the time you'll get a birth in the lower species of life, and you can have your own family again. You'll be a family of pigs, or a family of dogs, family of alligators. So yeah, material life, there's no gain. Spiritual life you can't lose. Very important verse. Prabhupada quotes it numerous times. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Maharaj. And there's a very wonderful question by Narsinga Leela Mataji on the chat. I'll read it. It says, Dear Guru Maharaj, you mentioned our selfish intentions. I really love to help and serve others, and I approach others in that manner. But after some time, my mind starts thinking of my own benefits, and the whole situation becomes polluted. Could you please share some practical guidance on how to counteract it? Thank you.
Well, it's hard to say if you're serving others. Obviously, there's going to be some expectation of reciprocation. As long as there is an expectation of reciprocation, you might find that the situation changes. Therefore, then you're looking for some personal gain through that. But if you're serving others simply for the benefit of others, even if it's difficult, and you do it simply as a service to others to benefit them, not thinking what's in it for yourself, the satisfaction you get of the service is what you are finding, the happiness you're experiencing, then you can continue. But even if the initial motivation is somewhat tinted by your own personal desires, then that may also manifest later when things change in the relationship. But if you want to help somebody for the sake of helping them, you can do that. But some people can't appreciate it or won't appreciate it, will criticize or whatever, and then you start looking outside of that situation for your own satisfaction, or even within the situation. So when Krishna consciousness, if you're engaged in devotional service, then all right, you serve, but you serve for the sake of pleasing others. You serve for the sake of making advancement in spiritual life. So that's why it says, turn to the 5th canto, 5th canto, 12th chapter, verse number 9, I believe. Verse 5. Canto, well, chapter, yeah. I think it's verse 9.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, can you repeat it again?
Huh? I couldn't hear you.
Can you repeat the verse number again? Do you want me to pull up the verse, Maharaj?
Oh yeah, now I got it. 5th canto, 18th chapter, verse number 9, 5:18:9.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. One second. Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. This is Prahlad Maharaj speaking. Go to the translation.
Are you able to see my screen, Maharaj?
May there be good fortune throughout the universe. May all envious persons be pacified. May all living entities become calm by practicing bhakti yoga. For by accepting devotional service, they will think of each other's welfare. Therefore, let us engage in the service of the Supreme Transcendent Lord Shri Krishna and always remain absorbed in thoughts of Him. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripasindhu bheva Dhanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. Go down the page. There's a statement by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this particular verse. Purport. Yeah. Here it says, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a very fine purport in this regard. Whenever one offers a prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one always requests some benediction from Him. Even pure Niskam devotees pray for some benedictions as instructed by Lord Chaitanya in his Shikshastikam prayers. So here one is praying to be picked up from the material world and be placed at the lotus feet of the Lord. So no one is without desire. No one is without desire. Even in spiritual life, you desire, if you desire to become Krishna conscious,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, I think Maharaj has some internet issues, so please bear patience. Maharaj is disconnected.
Raj, we can't hear you.
Maharaj,
You're talking, but we can't hear you.
no, Maharaj has disconnected because of probably an internet issue. So
Guru
no,
Maharaj,
He is talking. He's talking.
just relax for a minute. Relax. I'm here. Nishringa Leela, does that answer your question?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, thank you very much. It helps a
Yeah.
lot, especially that part with expectations. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. But if you really want to do something for someone, help them become Krishna conscious. That's the best way. And when you help them become Krishna conscious, you're also helping yourself.
thank you, Harik. Supriya Mataji, you had a question that you put in the chat window. Would you like to, because you also raised your hands, would you like to unmute and ask the question?
I have another question, not as mentioned in the chat. We
Okay, please
say
go ahead.
we have to do everything to please Lord. We have to do everything to please the devotees, which is true. But if the thing we are doing is not what we enjoy doing, should we still continue doing it? Because I just feel that it's something like creating a mentality of a people pleasing mentality.
You have to see if that the activity is in line with Krishna consciousness. If it's instructions of your spiritual master, or if it's in line with the process of bhakti, then whether you like it or not, or whether it's easy or not, it doesn't really matter.
As long as it comes from spiritual.
That doesn't matter. Well, that's the understanding. If it comes from your own mind, you don't know whether. Here, we used to say, when you don't follow the instructions of the spiritual master and you decide on doing something, when things go wrong, then you're stuck because you're thinking, well, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing. But if you follow the instructions of the spiritual master and things apparently go wrong, you're okay because you're under the care of that instruction. In other words, you're being guided by higher authority. Even if things go wrong from the material perspective, you're nicely situated because you're following the instruction. So when we rely on our own mind as the authority, then you're in a situation where you can't make a clear decision. And if things go right, you think, oh, well, I made the right situation. Maybe not. Maybe that's not what Krishna wants. Therefore, it's always good to get the blessings and the instructions of the authorities on the activities you perform. And not simply go by what your mind tells you. Well, I like to serve this way, so I'll do that. But then, oh, it's not going right for me. I'll just serve in another way. You keep changing. Because
So
service.
basically, what
the
you are saying
service
is our mind tricks us tricks us into thinking in certain way, and which may create those sanskaras of people pleasing or being a doormat or something like that.
If you rely, the mind will always do what it likes to do. But if you're guided by higher authority, then you can accept whatever instructions come as the ultimate principle of activity. Whether you like it or not, or whether it's difficult or easy, it's not the motivation behind it. It's to please the spiritual master, please the Lord. That's why one who does not take shelter of, higher authority is simply monodharma. They're devotees of their own mind.
Okay.
I like it, I don't.
Yeah, got it. Duality of mind. Thank you, Maharaj.
That's why we have spiritual master. That's why we have authorities. That's why we have the association of devotees to help us understand how to execute devotional service that is beneficial both for yourself and for those you're serving. But most people don't contact the spiritual master or any kind of authority. They just do whatever they like. And sometimes they're successful by their own calculations, and sometimes they're not. But Krishna is not dependent on results. He's dependent on your motivation. He sees the motivation, not so much the results. But if you're in line with the instructions, then the results will always be pleasing. And in other words, it'll bring one to satisfaction in the activity. If you're not feeling satisfied in your devotional activity, obviously, there's something wrong. Or something needs to change. Krishna consciousness is sukham kartamavayam. It's a joyful process. But the mind can really make it complicated. Or even turn it upside down, make it seem like it's remember, devotional service is for you are serving. So it's for the person you're serving and not for yourself. Although you are connected in that service and therefore you also benefit. Sri Devi.
Maharaj, you mentioned in the course of today's class that material life, one loses everything at the time of death. Nothing, you can't take anything. But in spiritual life, whatever progress, whatever level you've reached, you continue at that point in the next life. So I just wanted to share that today Mother Sukhavah's mother left her body looking at Lord Jagannath's transcendental form and hearing Srila Prabhupada chanting the holy name, surrounded by all her loved ones chanting the holy name. Very glorious departure. Just wanted to share how wonderful it is for a devotee to leave and how difficult it is for a materialist to leave their body.
Yeah, the materialists, they just see the Amadutas. These are ferocious persons that come with ropes to drag the subtle body out of the gross body and bring it to Yamaraj. Death for the materialists is horrible. Death for the spiritualist is a door to eternal life, or it's an opening to a higher level of existence. I'll talk to you later. I can think about the shadow. He's come back a little while. Okay.
All right, just one more point. Supriya Mataji made a very nice point in the chat. She says that I think in material life, we are using our energy to maintain the body rather than the other way around. And hence we feel tired and it's a never ending place. So I just thought of mentioning this. It's a very, very important point.
When the soul is engaged, when the living entity is engaged in devotional service, the soul becomes energized by that activity. And therefore, the body becomes illuminated and energized by devotional service. That's why devotees can stay engaged all day and still remain enthusiastic. Where the non-devotees, they have to have their coffee, they have to have their drink, they have to have their sense gratification in order to get stimulated. Like I travel on airplanes all the time, and you know, they're always serving some kind of drinks or some food or something, and people always have to have something. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. And when I refuse, sometimes these airline attendants are less surprised because I only take food at regulated times. Where a non-devotee will eat at any time, sleep at any time, and you know, simply follow wherever the mind and senses go. How can we sing and dance for hours at a time because the soul is being energized? How can we serve for hours at a time because the soul is being energized? As soon as you stop, sometimes you feel the effects of the body being used, but while you're engaged, you can see that you transcend the feelings of the body and you're on the spiritual level. So that's generally true. Any other questions?
There's a
The Sringalila has something to share.
I'll read it out, Maharaj. You were speaking about Garbhadam Samskara and children. So if I may share a nice incident that happened a few days ago. Krishna Premi Mataji and her family came over to lunch. Her son is really a very special soul. He's so small that he doesn't speak yet and is not interested in playing with toys but with paraphernalia. So after seeing your picture at the altar, he took Achman and started offering water to you. It's really inspiring when devotees follow culture and regulations.
From good trees come good fruit.
And I think there was one more question from Raja Vilasani Mataji, but I can't see her on the camera. So if you have any questions, Mataji, you can ask.
Prabhuji, she posted on chat.
Oh, what was this? Yes, sorry about that. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, you mentioned that if you worship God and simply continue material activities, so can you please explain more in details? Thank you.
It's just, you know, the people who worship God in order to improve their material life. That's the common theme amongst those who practice religious life in this age. They worship God in order to improve their material, you know. Dehi, 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 right? You know the word dehi? Dehi means give me, right? Rupam dehi, Yaso dehi, Dhanam dehi, Janam dehi, dehi. Give me wealth, my dear Lord. Jaya Jagadish Hare Swami, Jaya Jagadish Hare Swami. Oh, give me nice family, give me good health, give me good job, give my children nice marks in school. Dehi, dehi, dehi. Krishna is he set up his bureau there, and you just, your prayers of the payment, and depending on the type of prayer, you get the payment. You know, he's the stockbroker, he's the merchant, and the merchandise is what you want, and the prayer, the money is your prayer. It's not devotional life, that's business. That's why Prabhupada would say, some religious groups, they say, my dear Lord, give us our daily bread. But we say, my dear Lord, what would you like to eat today? At best, that's mixed devotion. At best, mostly it's more like karma yoga. That's it. Avyavilasita sunya jnana karma vanavritam anukulena Krishna silanam bhakti. Devotional service is meant to please the Supreme Lord and to further the process of religious principles. The people take up spiritual life in order to improve their material life. We call it not spiritual life, but religious life. They take up religious life in order to improve material life. That's quite common. Even in our society, people come for that reason. They even stay for that reason. But that's not pure devotional service, nor does it satisfy the soul. It might give some temporary relief to the body and mind, but it doesn't satisfy the soul. Therefore, hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord and the association of devotees is the essence of spiritual life, and the thing that gives satisfaction to the soul and peace to the mind. Satam prasangam mamabirya samvido vidana ritkarna masayana kata. This is where bhakti starts. Hear and chant the glories of the Lord. Okay, thank you. Tomorrow I have to go on an early morning flight, so it's 7:00 p.m. in my zone in the world right now. I have some things to continue to wrap up before I leave this particular area. Thank you very much. And we'll see you tomorrow. I'll be in Mumbai for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We're not sure where we're going to be, but we'll be somewhere.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Gurudev. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Maharaj, thank you.
Jai
Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada.
Thank
you, Guru Maharaj.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Prabhupada.